What's going on, guys? I'm Bill and welcome to Bill's How To. Today I'm going to show you guys an easy way to build your own raised garden beds. Let's get straight into it. Let's do this. Alright guys, so today I'm going to be showing you step by step how to build a garden bed nice and simple. You can do it yourself from home regardless of the shape or the height that you're going to be doing. Follow the steps that I'm about to show you guys and it'll be nice and simple. I'm going to be building an L-shaped garden bed going along here, 5.4 meters in either direction. I've also got one that I've almost completely completed on the other side. It's about 90% complete at the moment, and you can see there the sleepers are two stacked on top of each other. So that's going to give me a total height of 400. Now, to show you guys a little bit more of a diagram so that you know exactly what we're doing here. It's not to scale, but you can see there the L shape, and we've got a 900 piece here and an 800 piece in between the sleepers. Now you might be thinking, why have I got this one here longer than this one here or in a different configuration? The reason for that is when I'm looking at the garden bed coming up from this way here, I don't want to see the end grain. So the end grain is this section here. So if you have a look at the edge of the sleeper, right on the end, you can see there the end grain is different to the actual face of the timber. So it's not too bad if you're leaving it in a natural finish as it is at the moment, but if you plan on staining or painting, which I'm probably going to do later on down the track, those end grains will come up with a different finish to the actual face. So that's the reason why we've got the face exposed here and we've got the main board face exposed here. It'll make a little bit more sense once I start putting it all together. But basically we've got two 800 pieces that we need to cut, which are these two here, two 900 pieces, and then four 3.6s. Now that's going to be just my base level. I'm going to go one step above that, so one more level, which means I need to double up on my measurements here. Four 900s, four 800s, and four 3.6s. Now we're using 200 by 50 treated pine sleepers. The maximum length they come in is 3.6 meters, so I'm going to have a little joint as well, which you guys will see how I'm going to do. Once again, we're going up a second level, so I've got another trick that I like to do to ensure that nothing ever bows down the track. So I'm going to be driving in these long screws here through both pieces of timber so that we make sure everything's nice and supported and there's not going to be any bowing or warping over time. I'll quickly get started on cutting these ones here up now. Now with these 3.6 meter lengths, they are purchased at 3.6 meters, but there's always a little bit of overhang. Not sure why, but we've got probably about a variance of maybe 10 to 20 mil on either one. So we're just going to square these ones here off, measure them up exactly 3.6. And we're just going to cut these ones here down. Alright guys, so I've got my pieces cut down to size. I'm going to lay the first layer roughly in position. I'm going to show you guys a little trick how to attach our bottom sleeper to our top sleeper so that we can prevent any kind of bowing or warping that may happen in the future. Alright, so to join the bottom and top sleeper together to make them nice and strong, we're going to take a little speed bore here or a paddle bit, whatever it is that you have. We're just going to bore out a hole, either one, top or bottom, it doesn't really matter. In this particular case, we're using it on the short one, so we only need one hole on either side. Longer span, where then you can put multiple holes in there in order to support it. So one hole on either side. Keep clearing that debris out. And we only want to go down about halfway on the sleeper. Once again, clear that debris. One more on the other side. Alright, once we've done that, we can then take a long screw. In this particular case, we're using a galvanized 14 gauge 200 mil long screw. You can get ones that have got a nice coating on the outside that help it go through the timber, especially on treated pine, but they're about $4 to $5 per piece, so not really worth it in my case. What we do now, clean this section here off. We're going to drop the section with the holes straight over the top. You want to line up your sides, make sure the sides are sitting nice and flat, level with one another. Next thing we're going to do is check that face. So we want to make sure that our face is sitting nice and flat as it is right now. That's sitting perfectly, and once we screw it all together, this is going to suck itself in and it's going to almost become one piece. So that's going to prevent it from bowing out and also warping up and down. So we can take our screw, drop that straight in, Make sure you hold everything in place and then just drive that screw in. Repeat the process on the other side. And once that's done, we've got one nice solid piece all joined together. So that's going to prevent any kind of warping down the track. It's not going to bow up and down. It's not going to bulge out the sides. You're always going to have that nice smooth surface. Now with regards to these holes here on the top, you simply flip it over. And now we've got that nice smooth finish on top and the holes are on the bottom. We're going to repeat the process for all our pieces here. Alright guys, so I just finished attaching my top and bottom sleepers, finished everything and was ready to move on and realised that I made a mistake. So what I did was I forgot to stagger my joint. Now remembering we've got a 3.6 metre one running here, then I've got my little 800 or 900 extension. I was supposed to stagger it like brickwork, so basically a long piece, short piece on the bottom, then start with the short piece and the long piece next to that. That would have given it a lot more strength because we've got a little joint there. But I've unfortunately forgot about it. I did it on the last garden bed, but just got carried away on this one here and completely forgot. Now the problem is that I can't pull these screws back out. They're really long, very thick, they're 14 gauge, and if I try pull those back out, they're most likely going to strip the head on the way out, and then I'll be stuck anyway. So I'm going to leave it as is. I'm going to have to brace it on the inside, which I didn't want to do. Basically these will sit side by side, and then I'll have to put another sleeper straight over the top and screw into both of those so we can brace it. Ideally I would have braced it from the back and from the front, but I don't want to leave a gap between the garden bed and the fencing here. And the reason for that is we're going to get a lot of weeds that will grow through there, and having a big gap will increase that weed from growing in there or growing in there. So anyway, I'm gonna have to brace it on the inside. Nobody would ever know except for you guys that have all watched the video and me. It's gonna eat at me for a while, but we need to move on. I'm gonna brace it on the inside. Nobody will hopefully ever be able to tell. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna brace the corners. So I've got 100 by 100 mil post here. I've cut them down to 30 centimeters. So what I'm gonna do in the corners is just simply attach that like that. Now that's going to do two things. Number one, it's going to give us a lot more area to screw into so that we can attach all these corners. It's going to brace it, which means it's going to prevent it from blowing out, from having weight inside and water and everything else. It's not going to blow out by using these corner braces. Number two is because these ones here are square, it's also going to square out my corners for me. So that's going to make things a lot easier and have everything line up nicely. Really disappointed with this one here, but unfortunately I have to move on. If you guys are watching it and you're making a long garden bed like this one here, make sure you don't do it. Anyway guys, let's get straight into doing these corners. If we butt it up together, this is how it's going to be. So if we take our corner piece, we can hold it all in place and do that while it's still there. But I'm going to cheat a little bit. What I'm going to be doing is, I know it's going to be sitting right on this edge here of this board. So I'll just push this one here to a side. We'll take this one here. This time around I'm using 10 gauge screws and they're 100 mil. So these ones here are the coated ones. They go through literally like butter, nice and soft. What I'm going to do is just simply square it off with my edge here, bring it down a little bit from the top, a little bit from the bottom, and that's going to be sitting perfect right there. You can see just how much easier that is to go in. Straighten it up once again. And we're just going to attach a few screws on the back. Alright, now we've got this one here. We're just going to move it over to a side. We can take this larger piece. Makes a big difference if you've got a second set of hands, because this stuff does get heavy. Alright, now we can take some screws and we're just going to screw it from the back. Now when you're screwing it from the back, if you're putting this up against any kind of wall or anywhere where you're not going to have access later on, make sure that you do a little bit of overkill on the back and just attach a few more screws, because if you ever do need to reattach any kind of screws or tighten it up or anything like that later down the track in 10 years time, and you need to put a few screws in to get into that back of the garden bed, this is not going to happen. So Put a little bit more support now so you don't have to worry about it later on. Get everything lined up. I'll lift this one here into place and then just simply attach it. So we'll level up my top here and also the back side there. And you can see there that sucks everything in. Put a few more screws in the back, make sure everything's nice and level once again. Remembering, do a little bit of overkill on the back. So now we can move to the next corner and do the exact same thing. Take our corner brace, square it off on the side, center it. That'll suck itself in. Straighten out that bottom section. That's a new Milwaukee hammer. Alright, then we can swing this section here over. Line it up once again. Level everything off. Same thing down the bottom, and it's going to suck itself in. Make sure everything's nice and square. Put a couple more screws in and secure everything. Alright guys, so now we've got these two corners here complete. Work our way down. Really disappointed with that, but anyway, we'll pretend like it never happened. I'm going to continue through, brace off these two corners here, the one in the back, join everything together, and then I'm going to brace this right at the end. So I guess the only upside is that it's a little bit less weight for me to move around, but I'm going to have to brace these off, and I'll show you guys how I brace them at the end. Alrighty, all the corners are now in. I've also added some bracing in the centers, once again to prevent that from bowing out. So I've screwed that from the back, screwed it from the face as well. That's going to give it that added support, make sure nothing bows out. There's not too much soil in here, it's only 400 high, but just in case, everything's all braced off now. I'm going to push everything into the corner as far as we can go. This stuff is a little bit heavy now, once you put all the pieces all together. It's looking pretty good there. So I'm going to butt everything up to each other. Going to create those little braces that I was talking about, which is just a little offcut piece of sleeper once again. Brace those all off and we're almost done, guys. Alright, so I've got everything completely assembled now. Sun's starting to come down. That's what happens when you start half a day. But everything's looking good. I've checked the levels. Everything's looking nice and level. Braces are nice and strong. Even these ones here are pretty good as well. I've climbed up, kicked them around, jumped on top of them. These ones here are all very, very solid. Luckily for me, I've got sleepers behind that's been concreted in as well. So I've also put some screws into there. So this one here is not going anywhere. But I think that might call it for today. Tomorrow we're going to come back. I'm going to line this all with geofabric, which is basically a weed mat. Obviously I had grass underneath. I'm not going to remove it. I'm just going to line the whole inside with the weed mat, and then we can get started on filling in the soil. Alright, so we're back now the following day. We're going to be installing this weed mat, which is also known as just some geofabric. What we're going to be doing with this is lining the whole inside. It's going to do two things. First of all, you might have noticed there's still grass here under the soil. I didn't remove any of that grass from underneath, and that's going to prevent the grass from growing back up into the garden bed. Number two is it's going to prevent any kind of soil from being washed out between the sleepers. Now, if you have a look at the two sleepers here, we screwed them both together, so The gap is absolutely minimal, not really too concerned about it, but it's still just an added protection there. We're going to line the whole inside up. It'll retain all the soil, let the water go through, but any weeds or soil won't be able to wash through that fabric. So I'm going to quickly line it up on that side there, staple it on top so that it can hold into place for me. I'll roll it out, push everything down into place into the actual garden bed, staple it once again, and those staples are just temporary anyway, so just to help me hold everything in place while I get the soil in. So we're just going to use a handheld stapler like this one here. And once the weed mat's all been installed, this is what it ends up looking like. It's ready to have soil put in. So once all the soil's been filled in, you can then go around and cut off all the excess around the edges. And then you can tuck that soil in straight behind. So I'm going to go through and do the rest all the way around. This one here is sitting up a little bit high, and the reason for that is it's going to compact over time, and then I'll be able to level it all out. And once it's all done, this here is the finished product. We've got two awesome garden beds that span probably about 20 meters in total. Nice and simple to do yourself. It's something that you can do over a weekend. The hardest part about this whole project was filling it up with soil. Now that we've got all this planting space here, it's time to start planting. So if you guys want to see any videos on growing your own fruit and veggies at home, let me know in the comment section below. Even if you don't like eating fruit and veg, I guarantee you guys, if you're planting your own stuff and you spend time waiting for them to grow and fruit, you'll honestly enjoy it. They taste nothing like store-bought fruit and veg. So much more juicier, so much more crispy and tasty. A couple things that I'm planning on doing here. Obviously I've got two L-shaped garden beds now, and in the middle here I've intentionally left a large gap. Now this gap here is about 5.5 meters in total, and what I plan to do here is have a big timber structure running up and over. That way I can plant some grapes and have some grapevines going over the edge here, or over from one to the other, bridging over. I'm also considering paving this whole back section here, especially because it's so quiet up the back. I honestly want to just put a little hammock here and go to sleep. That's my plans. If you guys have any suggestions, or even in terms of the face here, obviously it's still a natural finish. I'm considering staining or painting the finish here, and that's the reason why I made sure that my ends were always facing the other way so that you won't see it. But let me know in the comment section below, guys. I'm waiting for my grass to grow back through. We're coming to the start of spring hopefully soon, but it's nice and warm, so this section here will all start to thrive over time. It has a lot of top dressing over the top of it now, and that's why it's not pushing through just yet. But there we have it, guys. Nice and simple. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video. You've learned something new. As always, guys, like, comment and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Bill. Thanks for watching Billshowto.